Welcome to our Playwell podcast. My name is Sherry Morgan and I'm the Director of Projects at Play Scotland, the national organisation for play. Today our Chief Executive Officer, Marguerite Hunter-Blair, speaks to Julia Jane Gladwin, known as JJ, a garden designer who has grown increasingly aware of the disconnection from nature so many young people experience. To help address these issues, JJ founded Go Flourish, a charity whose aim is to reconnect children to nature. Go Flourish puts well-designed gardens into schools, where the gardens are used to support curriculum learning and well-being. I hope you enjoy their conversation.
Welcome to the Play Scotland Playwell podcast series. Today I'm delighted to have with me Julia Jane Gladwin. JJ is well known for establishing an amazing charity called Go Flourish. JJ, would you like to tell us all about how you came to set up this amazing charity?
Yes. About 12 years ago, we started to, we wanted to put a garden into schools and we wanted to do a forerunner of what we were doing now, but found that there was a bit of a conflict between doing a joint venture between private and the government and the council. So we had to scrap that. And then we started just having children coming to the farm here. But they were children with particularly difficult, they were going through rather difficult times or had difficult home lives. And we began to realise that it wasn't just the odd child that needed help, but we were told by teachers that this would benefit all children. And there was one child who came here who was living alone with one of their parents and with a younger sibling. And that younger sibling, who was 5 years younger, when they went to school, they were so neglected that they could only hiss. They were unable to speak. And we fully expected a few years later to see that child here on the farm. And we didn't. And the reason we didn't was because there were children more in need than this child. That was profoundly shocking. We really wanted to find a way that we could roll this out instead of just in the schools that we were working with, but that there was a very significant need and we needed to have a response adequate to that need. So we just began to think of what we could do initially locally on the Black Isle, where there are 9 schools in total. And that was just actually a monumental task. So we thought, again, at this point, it was mostly just me thinking, because we hadn't established the charity, what we could do. And then I broke my back. And it gave me a great opportunity to reflect, because I lay in bed for the better part of 6 months. And suddenly, at one point, I can't remember when, there was sort of a bit of a eureka moment. And I thought, actually, what we need to do is we need to have a scoping study, which will be privately funded. But the purpose of the scoping study is to develop a model that can be rolled out by the government. And to do that, we needed to collect data. And what we'd seen, because there are a lot of good initiatives in schools, sort of horticultural initiatives, school gardens, is that they relied on an existing member of staff or a parent. So we also realised that, again, because of our relationships with teachers, that they simply did not have the capacity. The idea that I sort of came up with, the scoping study would be with 3 schools, which would have a garden, a Go Flourish garden, and 3 schools which did not have a garden, but we collected data. They were our control schools. We engaged a full-time liaison teacher who we put through their RHS. And this was not an add-on, because there wasn't the capacity within the curriculum for add-ons. So we were going to use the gardens to support curriculum learning.
And JJ, the RHS that you put them through, is that Royal Horticultural Studies
Yes, it's a Royal Horticultural Society, and they go through their level 2, which is it's quite rigorous. And so they would be trained in horticulture, trained teacher, and we also engaged a full-time PhD student through St Andrews University to measure outcomes. The gardens have to be high quality, and the concept is high quality, supporting curriculum and learning, resilience, child resilience. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Not a silver bullet, but it will help with a number of issues. The high quality is very important because we all respond to beauty. We also, which is sort of quite akin to what you're doing, the resilient part of it, which is, I mean, nothing is more important than the other. But the resilient part is we have a robust play area. And in that robust play area, we've got, it was actually going to be a fort. And then we engaged a local architect. He teaches aesthetics at Edinburgh University. He's young, he's in his 30s. He came up with an interactive play. It looks like the Crown of Thorns, actually. But it could be anything. You know, a fort is always a fort, but a crown of thorns could be a galleon, it could be a labyrinth, it could be a fort, it could be whatever you want. And we surround it with berberis, rosa rugosa, thistles, nettles, anything which will be mildly painful. Because we were finding children were coming out here, if they got stung by a nettle, it would take an hour and a half to recover, often. They couldn't navigate even quite a sort of a 30-degree slope. Certainly boys who'd be shimmying up trees were not able to, on the whole. Afraid of insects, afraid soil wasn't soil, it was dirt. Insects aren't insects, they're bugs and need to be squashed. There's just a lot of fear. And we wanted to address that too. So to reconnect children to nature, to build up their resilience, and to do it within the existing framework of the school curriculum.
And I mean, it's fantastic that. But you would actually expect on the Black Isle that children would be very, immersed in nature already. So my thinking about it is a rural island community. I take it that's not true.
I thought exactly the same, and it isn't true. Yeah. So we initially started with a very tiny school that came out to us, and the children, there were 5 children who came, and 4 of them spoke with American accents, which just, they were watching TV the whole time and playing computer games. We see actually no difference between the children who come from a school in Inverness where there is no green area whatsoever, and the children who were in Bunlochy, which is a rural school.
It's quite shocking, isn't it? And, I think a lot of us assume that children in rural areas actually do know more about nature and get more opportunities. Although I know that when we lived in Northern Ireland, there was no pavements, even though we're out in the country, there's no pavements, so the children couldn't walk to school. So it can actually be quite a dangerous place, the countryside, for children and young people. So how many years on is Go Flourish now, and what progress have you seen? You were saying that you have established a baseline. Have you got measurements now from the baseline to show improvement?
The model is that we put in a Go Flourish teacher in the school for a year before the garden is built. Well, the garden is built during that year. And his or her job is to build up sort of project awareness with the school, with the children, with the parents and the school. And during that time, we design and build the garden. That was the first thing, because if you remember, this is a scoping study. We're not delivering a fully formed program. We're working out how to do it. So the first school, which is North Keswick, which is local to where we live, is a rural school. And Laura Dorrant, our liaison teacher, was seconded out there 1 day a week and was 4 days in-house. Then year 2, which is 24-25 academic year, the garden was fully up and running. And the children have an hour and a half mandated weekly in the school, in the garden, less curriculum lessons, but there's capacity for another hour and a half. There are 150 children in the school. At the moment, we've had 3 data collections, and that's with St Andrews, and it's just been, I don't know what they do, put it through computers. And we're going to have an extraordinary trustee meeting on the 24th of June but that will be the first time we are presented as a charity with the findings, and then we're going to share that with the parents at the beginning of September. So of those 150 children, they all take part in curriculum learning using the gardens, but we need parental consent for them to have the data gathered. So 50 of those children are part of the actual program, and actually roughly the same number at our control school, which is at Inchmore Kirkhill Primary. It's known as Kirkhill Primary, and about the same number of children who don't have a garden. Their information has been gathered too. The data has been gathered from them.
You must be so excited waiting to see what the information is. I'm sure anecdotally you can see an improvement, but as you say, if you want to roll something out on a national level, you do need the evidence and the research. So it is important. So you must be really excited.
It is exciting. And as you say, we've got a lot of anecdotal feedback. I mean, there's one child who is so difficult in the school, needs one-to-one all the time. They've become aggressive. All the rest of the children are taken out of the class. And that happens a lot. And that child is now able to participate in small group learning. The teachers, we've been focusing primarily on children, but that was to begin with. What we're doing next is we're doing the impact on teachers is fantastic. So when we started, there were 8 teachers in the school. Initially, it was just the headmistress and one teacher who liked the idea. The others thought, we can't be bothered, it's another thing to do. At the end of the first year, so that was without the garden, but with Laura being in place, half the teachers were keen, and the last teacher fell to the charm of the garden in February. And really, the reticence from them was simply they were not horticulturally motivated themselves, and they just were overwhelmed. But that same teacher has said that the garden has brought joy back to teaching. And
that's lovely.
And on that second level, because we don't agree, I mean, we think part of the problems within society is that we silo everybody. We silo children, we silo parents, we silo teachers, we silo, the national health is siloed, everything is not interconnected, whereas in fact everything is interconnected. So this initiative is not meant only for children. It's not meant only for teachers. It's not meant only for parents. It's meant to. It's also for the community, because if children have any experience of horticulture, it tends to be with their grandparents. So we're next going to do something on the community and how that improves the health of people who are retired or just generally. So we have community open days, and we're getting, the normal run of people is that you'll get the committed parents, those who will always try and do something to help in the community. You'll get those who've moved in and want to meet people. You'll get those who feel a little bit marginalised and again are a bit lonely. And you'll get the older people who, again, are stalwarts. They will just try and help out where they can. And we get the children who are coming with their parents. So that's beginning to build. So we only formed in August 2023, and our first school garden is now firmly established. The next one is going to be in Inverness, Delnay, which is more challenging as a school. It's got 250 children, got a dynamic headmistress. We hope, so the first garden we funded in its entirety. The second garden, and obviously that can't be a rollout. We can't ask the council to do that, especially if we want quality. So the second garden is going to be designed by a Chelsea Gold medalist, like Maggie's Centres. We want that sort of quality. We want industry to finance it through donated materials and maybe skilled labour, but we want the community to be involved in the design process. So it's not going to be community designed, but they, I suppose, will give the brief, and then the community will build it so that everybody is involved, so that everybody feels as though this is their garden, and out with the school hours or during the summer holidays. It is genuinely a community garden. And we also want children, when they leave the school, when those doors or those gates close, when you leave the school, you are no longer welcome in the school. We want these children to be welcome in the garden when they leave, when 18, 22, and they've been jilted by a girlfriend or boyfriend or are experimenting with drugs and things are going pear-shaped. We want them to remember the garden and to have very strong, positive memories of it.
It's wonderful. And also not just that sense of belonging to a community, which I think is so important. So yes, the garden, but also the fact that it's a community enterprise endeavour, that it does sound absolutely wonderful. And so many other people in the world I've heard speaking about similar things. I'm thinking of Gales Penaloza, the former mayor of Bogota, talking about, if a community is fit for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, it's fit for everyone. And I think this idea about cities alive and bringing cities to life and communities to life is an intergenerational effort. Everyone needs to be involved and everyone's got a contribution to make. Have you been to speak to the community? Do you have to persuade them to get involved, or is there very willing and able and open community?
There are 3 answers to that question. First of all, they want to know if they have to put in anything themselves. And that's what the school will say. Is this an extra thing I'm going to have to add to my list of things I have to do? The council are going to ask, is it going to cost me anything? And it's not. Each school gets a free teacher. This is fairly standard. What happens is that people are quite hesitant. They like the idea, but they remain to be convinced. So that you can see it happening. They're quite sort of standoffish. Then they arrive and they see the garden being used with Laura, working with the other teachers, and they become increasingly enthusiastic.
JJ, your background is in horticulture. Can you explain how that came about? And it's fantastic now that you're using it to promote this wonderful charity, to focus on children and young people and their play experiences and their connection with nature. But what inspired you to get involved with horticulture?
Well, I am completely untrained. I'm an untrained garden designer. So what happened is I trained as a furniture restorer. I was brought up in the country. I'm a farmer's daughter. Immediately the really essential bills were paid. Where I went was into the garden. And one day, after about 12 years ago, somebody brought a piece of furniture, and then they came back with some more furniture, and then they came back with some more furniture. And they said, actually, the real reason I've come is that I want you to design me a garden. And I said, well, I'm untrained, can't draw, don't know a lot about plants. They said, well, you've got an eye. So I designed a garden for them, and it was a really good experience. In fact, I'll tell you who it was for. It was for that chap in the painting behind.
And I've been looking at this painting, and I know we're on a podcast, but it's actually, it took my eye the minute we started talking. Would you like to describe what's in the painting? It's lovely, even just lovely to look at when I'm listening to you talking. It's a beautiful portrait.
Well, this man is called Dr. David Tomey, and he ought to be considered a co-founder of Go Flourish, because all those years ago when we were working, he was the man who gave me my first garden design. And all those years ago, when I tried to do a garden in a local high school, we had devised a plan where I was going to give my time, obviously donated, but he was going to give a chunk of money to put the garden in. But we wanted the school to put in something, to raise something so they would appreciate it. Anyway, that failed. But he very much helped when we wrote the sort of 40-page sort of value document, or whatever it's called. And he went through with his red pen. He was ferociously intelligent and did not suffer fools gladly, had a very big heart and a very deep, generous pocket. And he was absolutely thoroughly for this and helped us by giving us an initial donation, which was honoured by his wife when he died. And she is a very good friend, has become a very good friend, £30,000 to get us going. When I did that first garden, I then gave it as a charity prize to raise money for different charities as a raffle. And I've now done over 80 gardens and 2 public commissions.
Wow.
So it wasn't just a one-off.
No, wow, that's amazing. JJ, like ourselves, you're very interested in improving children's mental health and learning outcomes. And we know that in Scotland and around the world, COVID has taken a terrible toll on children's mental health and well-being. And it's so lovely that you are giving them an opportunity now to experience gardens and plants and the growth in a garden and the different cycles of a garden. But going forward, do you think that this is a project that the government might take seriously and try and roll out across, or even across a local authority? Are you getting engagement from politicians and the media?
I will answer that question. I think it's important that I finish what I was saying. There are various things that we can work on. Attendance is one.
Yep, that's so important now, so important. Because we can't raise attainment without raising attendance at the moment. That's the biggest challenge. Yeah,
that's measurable. As also is teacher absenteeism. There's a lot of teachers who go off unwell because of stress. And we lose 50% of our teachers within the first 5 years of qualifying in Scotland. So those are measurable. Our scoping study is going to run for 10 or 11 years because we want it to go from when a child enters primary school to when they leave secondary school. Secondary school is a whole different ballgame, and I've no idea. We haven't got our head around that at all yet. But we're beginning to have those conversations because we must.
That's great. Now, later this year, we have the Scottish School Grounds Survey being released. And it was done 20 years ago in 2005, and it's been done again now and being released in 2025. And without giving anything away, it does make quite shocking reading. While there's been some improvement in 20 years, there's been nothing on the scale at which we might have expected, given the fact that schools are more open to play-based learning, more open to teaching the curriculum outdoors. We might have expected the school estate to keep up with that in terms of its development, but it's not the case. And over half of primary schools, I think, say that children don't have active play at break time. So that's very worrying, and the fact that the children that you're working with can run out and go to the garden, it's just so lovely and so stimulating, isn't it? And in some ways very energizing, and in other ways very calming for children. So I think school grounds is something that we have to pay particular attention to. I do hope it becomes a big issue in the elections next year, and that politicians pay attention to how important the school estate is in delivering the outcomes that we want for children and young people, and not just see it as big lumps of tarmac or car parking spaces. We've all seen it. And it's just so important that we move on from that. And it's not just a postcode lottery. So I think the work you're doing and the figures that you're about to have are going to be incredibly important across Scotland this year.
We're working, we have got a strategy. We're working with the Centre for Social Justice. Do you know of them?
Yes, I do.
We are also we are actively seeking as a trustee somebody who works with government and council law, and we've got a couple of people who we're in conversation with. We also, there has been a precedence with Dr. Ian McRitchie, who set up it's called Crossways Programme, where he mentored. I should have that name at the tip of my tongue. He was asked by the Glasgow Council to sort out their foster homes, and they were financially losing money. And he sorted them out, but also he realised that only 2% of the children went on to tertiary education. So he set up a mentoring programme, and it's been hugely successful. Where he was very, very clever, he got the council to willingly and with delight sign a legally binding agreement that they would roll this out if it were successful. And he's going to, when at the right stage, he's going to help us negotiate that strategy for us. But, everything's always new, isn't it?
Yeah, Yes.
I've never done it before. So you really rely on the people that you meet to introduce you to the next person. And it is this thing of nobody, I just came up with the idea. I didn't even come up with all of the idea. Of course I didn't. But, the sort of the scoping study element of it is that and then I couldn't possibly do it. Laura, absolute, she's a miracle. She's a miracle. And everybody we're meeting, the board of trustees we have, are fabulous. It absolutely demonstrates that that we all need each other to make things happen. We need other people, but we can do it. Obviously, changing government policy is a gargantuan task, but chip away at it, and if we end up by because you've got to have an exit strategy. I'm often asked that. Well, we'll have helped 2,500 children. That's not nothing.
Not nothing at all. And 2,500 children getting a really good start in life. You couldn't ask for more. JJ, before we go, I'd like you to tell me a wee bit about the WOOF organisation. I see in your CV here that you've been involved with that, and that's about young people giving young people work experience. Is that right?
It's worldwide opportunities on organic farms.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually need to be a farm. It could be an organic garden. Instead of when you're travelling, instead of just going around seeing the sights, you live with a family, or you live in a tent, or you basically join up with the lives of whoever you're staying with, and help out wherever you can. And it's become much more restrictive in recent years, but you're giving to each other. It's reciprocal.
And do young people then just turn up from all over the world, or is it agreed in advance who's coming and what they're doing? How does it work?
It's got to be agreed in advance, because it would be chaotic if it weren't. And we would host people from 3 to 6 months, and they, sometimes you'd get a dozen inquiries a day. So, you couldn't just have people turning up. And it's like anything, you've got to make sure that your values align. Because some people just want a little bit of help. Other people will say, well, look, we're lambing in the middle of the night, so we need you to get up in the middle of the night too. The woofer, this is what they call, will approach the farm. It's really important. I always try to put people off in a way, because you don't want people coming with false expectations. But we've hosted over 2,000 in 25 years or something.
Wow. And I suspect once they get to the Black Isle, they possibly don't want to leave.
They're I think they're now about 8 people who came from all over the world who are now living up here.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so nice. That's lovely to hear that. That's great. And so, JJ, can you tell us what is your vision for Go Flourish?
Our vision ultimately is that these gardens are entirely community generated, from conception to being brought into life, to being built, to being gardened, and that they are not used, but they are a means of bringing the whole community together, from the youngest child to the oldest resident.
Which is how we all live, don't we? It says it takes a whole village to raise a child, but actually we need a village that we all live in so that we have a good community. Yeah.
Yes, and you look at schools now, and they look like prisons, and they are. They are there to stop children running away, and to stop people going in. And this is to begin to break, well, not begin, but something else to break down these artificial barriers of distrust. We rub each other's sort of sharp corners off, but we can only do that if we actually spend time with one another.
Jay, at the start, we talked about a mutual friend, Emma Weir, who introduced us, and her favourite game being Ticket to Ride. Can you tell me what your favourite play memory is? What's your favourite play memory? We agreed we didn't particularly like games, so what is it that you do when you want to be playful?
Oh, well, I want to be playful. Well, when I was a child, I liked sitting on my brother
Oh, great. That's a great start. I love it.
But I would say we would loved hide and seek, loved running around playing cops and robbers, running around outside actually, and scrambling over in woodland over logs. Being brought up on a farm, we built lots of straw houses.
Proper straw houses.
Yes, building straw houses.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you today. Julia Jane, I'll give you your proper name. Julia Jane Gladwin, garden designer and director of Black Isle Prairie, and an amazing woman and founder of Go Flourish charity. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred app. To find out more about Play Scotland, please follow us on Blue Sky and visit our website at playscotland.org.